Everyone, my name is Chelsea Lyles, and today I'll be talking to y'all about the United States legal system. The United States has a federal system of government, a written constitution, and a common law system. There's a legal system for the federal government, and there's a separate system for each of the 50 states, for the District of Columbia, and for each of the American territories and other overseas possessions. For the most part, the system falls within the common law tradition, though there are significant civil law influences in some of the jurisdictions that are in territory that was once under French, Spanish, or Mexican rule. The federal government was established by, and its powers are defined by, the United States Constitution. The individual states have their own constitution, but the organization of the state governments tend to follow the same general pattern as that of the federal government. And to understand what the legal system is for, you must know what it is, some rights citizens have, and how the legal system works. The legal system includes rules, procedures, and institutions by which public initiatives and private endeavors can be carried out through legitimate means. In other words, it's a system for interpreting and enforcing law. It elaborates the rights and responsibilities in a variety of ways. Three major legal systems of the world consist of civil law, common law, and religious law. Other legal systems are maybe the jury system. It's a legal system for determining the facts at issue in a lawsuit. The tax system is a legal system for assessing and collecting taxes. And the electoral system is a legal system for making democratic choices. Now, jurisdiction's basis. Applying law consists of a constitution that can be written or oral. Primary legislation, statutes, and laws authorized by constitutionality authorized legislative bodies. Primary legislation approved body enacts subsidiary laws, or also known as bylaws, and traditional practices upheld by the courts. And most of us acknowledge the importance of the legal system in our society. As members of a community, we have a social obligation to the people around us to create a safe environment for everyone and make us feel secure walking the streets and dealing fairly with one another. Though we abide by these laws and rules each day, we're not the ones responsible for their enforcement. Whether we choose to break or follow the law is up to each person, and enforcement falls into the hands of the criminal justice system. Now that you know what the legal system is, you must know the rights citizens have. It's our civic duty to know that the laws that govern our lives, whether we've traveled to a different city or just want to host a garage sale, legal issues and our rights aren't always clear, though, so let's take a look at the most important ones that might affect you. Let's start with your rights once you've been pulled over by a police officer. You might have heard this before, it might be a little cliche, but you do have the right to remain silent. For example, you don't have to answer any questions about where you're going or where you're traveling from and what you're doing, or where you live even. If you wish to exercise your right to remain silent, just say so out loud, like, I prefer to remain silent, or I remain silent, something along those lines. Also, you don't have to consent to a search of yourself or your belongings, but police may pat you down on your clothing if they suspect you of a weapon. Note that refusing consent may not stop the officer from carrying out the search against your will, but making a timely objection before the search can help preserve your rights if any later legal proceeds happen. And also, you don't have the right to say, oh, I don't want you to search my car, if they have this other thing called probable cause. Probable cause could be something like they pull you over and they see a needle or syringe like laying in your passenger seat, and they're like, okay, we're gonna search the vehicle for drugs. Or maybe if they smell marijuana, then they can also search your vehicle then as well. If you're arrested by police, you have the right to a government appointed lawyer if you yourself cannot afford one. You don't have to answer questions about where you were born, whether you're a U.S. citizen, or how you entered the country as well. Another law that some people don't actually know is that nowhere in the United States is a person required to show ID to a police if they're carrying it. Now, what I mean by this is if you're a passenger, you have no obligation to show a police person your ID, and in many states, no obligation to even give them your name. So let's say you and your friend are in the car, y'all are going somewhere, and they get pulled over for whatever reason. Once the officer asks for their, license and registration or insurance, whatever, then they have to give it to them. You as a passenger, if they say, do you have your ID on you as well? Or can I see your ID? To you as a passenger, no, you don't legally have to give them your ID because you're just the passenger. You haven't done anything illegal. As of now, you aren't being convicted for an arrestable offense, so you legally don't have to provide them with your ID. This can help you, let's say if you have warrants and you don't want to give them your ID because you will then be taken to jail. So that's just a way to kind of prevent you from self-incriminating yourself, which we'll also talk a little bit more about. Let's see. So states have different bans. Let's see. Oh yeah. And then also I had a graph for y'all that I wanted to show. Let's see. Now, I'm just going to explain it since I can't really show it. So the number of people in prison and jails, I'm just going to explain it to y'all. The offenses based from 1980 to 2017. So in 1980, there was 9,000 people in state prisons alone for drug offenses. But now today, in 2020, that number is up to 190,100. So that's grown a lot. As far as federal prisons go, in 1980 there was 4,700, and today there are 78,800 people in federal prisons. In jails in 1980 there was 17,200 inmates, and then today there's 184,000 people in jail alone for drug offenses. So again, there's 190,100 people in state prisons. There's 78,800 people in federal prisons. And then there's 184,000 people in jail alone for drug offenses. Again, I'm telling you your rights. So maybe you can kind of prevent this from happening to you. I'm not supporting, drug use, but everyone should know their rights. Now, states do have different bans on the kind of cell phone usage that you can use and what's illegal while driving. So most ban texting while driving, of course, but some don't allow any use of your phone when you're at the wheel. So in similar vein, it's illegal to wear headphones when you're driving in some states even. Many states even have strange driving laws, like including traffic violations if you leave your car door open for what's deemed unnecessary, like an unnecessary amount of time. So always make sure to check up with your state specific laws, because even if you're checking your GPS while driving, that could be deemed illegal, and you can get a ticket for that as well. Now that you know a few of your rights as a citizen that you have, you need to know how the federal or how the legal system works. According to the Constitution, all powers not delegated to Congress are reserved to the states. Federal lawmaking begins when a member of the Senate of the House of Representatives introduces a bill. Most bills are referred to standing committees and to subcommittees for study. Bills are later brought before the Senate or House for debate and vote. Now, differences between the Senate and House versions of a bill are resolved in joint conference committees. After the House and Senate have approved a uniform version of the bill is sent to the president, and if the president signs the bill, it becomes law. If the president vetoes the bill, it becomes law only if the Senate and House override the veto. For this to happen, it requires the consent of 2/3 of the members of the Senate and the House. Now, state statutes. State legislators can also pass on matters for which they share jurisdiction with Congress. States can also pass laws on matters in which the Constitution does not grant jurisdiction to the federal government. And state lawmaking occurs through a process that is like the federal process. Now I'm just going to explain a little bit about the courts. The courts enforce statutes and interpret them. They also invalidate unconstitutional statutes and make law in areas not covered by statutes. And there are several different types of courts. The federal and state court systems consist of 2 levels of court: trial court and appellate court. Cases are tried in trial court, and appellate courts review the decisions of the trial courts. Now that you've been informed about what the legal system is, some rights citizens have involved with it, and how it works, you will have more awareness about this essential system. While the legal system continues to make progress, there's always room for improvement, and we can do our part as citizens being informed on our rights. Thank you.